An overwhelming and dominant 71% of our planet's surface is not covered by the solidity of dry land, but by the immensity of water. It is a mantle of an unfathomable and deep blue that unfolds majestically as far as the eye can venture, a vast liquid territory that dissolves into the distance of the horizon and far surpasses any conceivable limit for the human imagination. Beneath the dancing veil of the waves that incessantly caress the surface lies a parallel universe of such depth and mystery that most of its being remains veiled from human sight. It is truly fascinating to consider that we possess more detailed knowledge about the desolate surface of the Moon than about the silent abysses that rest just beneath the vessels that sail our vast seas. From serene surfaces where waves breathe the golden light of the sun, to trenches of eternal darkness where the king star has never dared to cast its gaze, creatures of truly extraordinary beauty and strangeness write their own silent narratives. In the deepest bowels of the ocean emerge beings so colossal that they dwarf any giant that has ever walked the face of the planet. Beings whose heart can reach the dimensions of a compact car, while their massive body rivals a commercial aircraft in size. And among those bluish shadows also dwells an extraordinary mind, an animal capable of recognizing its own reflection in the mirror and interpreting the world around it with a perception that boldly challenges human logic. It is in short a realm where power and mystery walk inexorably side by side, a domain that will be revealed in all its magnificence throughout this documentary. In its entirety, there are 5 major oceans, each endowed with markedly different characteristics, but which together form a single and colossal global body of water that envelops our planet like a liquid living and pulsating mantle. In reality, they possess no tangible borders or real divisions, only names that we as humanity have invented to map that which seems unimaginable. Their waters mix in a perpetual and indissoluble embrace. Their currents intertwine in a complex and elegant cosmic ballet, and their countless life forms connect in an eternal dance that began billions of years ago. In the abyssal depths, where sunlight never manages to penetrate creatures incomprehensible to the human mind, float in perpetual blackness, glowing with their own ghostly bioluminescent light. In the frozen waters of the poles, marine giants migrate thousands of miles, guided by constellations and magnetic fields that we do not yet fully understand. In the vibrantly colored reefs that explode with life, millions of species coexist in true subaquatic cities whose construction has taken millennia of incessant work. Every wave that breaks with a roar on the coast carries with it the stories and secrets of distant places. Every drop of ocean water was at some point polar ice, was once torrential rain in the tropics, was once an ethereal cloud suspended in the sky. The ocean knows no borders, does not understand political divisions, but to understand its true and breathtaking grandeur, it is necessary to sail through all its domains, and contemplate the planet through the impressive vastness that surrounds us. And when this journey comes to an end, it will be crystal clear how small we are before the impressive vastness that shapes and defines this world. We will begin our journey in the largest of all the blue Titan that covers almost half of the entire surface of the planet. Next, we will head toward the warmest, where monsoons dictate the incessant and changing rhythm of life. We will cross the ocean that connects continents and has witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations throughout history. We will ascend to the frozen top of the world, where bears hunt on immense platforms of frozen waters. And finally, we will descend to the most isolated and remote region of the planet, where penguins dive into waters so frigid that inhabiting them seems a truly impossible act. Throughout this journey, we will submerge into the abyssal depths, where the pressure is so immense that it would crush the sturdiest submarines as if they were fragile aluminum cans. We will swim among coral reefs that house a quarter of all marine life in just 1% of the total oceanic surface. We will witness epic hunts migrations that seem impossible and survival strategies that defy all logic known to man. Prepare yourself, because you are about to perceive that the oceans are much more than a simple and inert immensity. They are the fundamental support of all life. They are not only dazzling and beautiful places, they are absolutely crucial for the delicate balance of our planet. And behind every mystery they keep in their depths, the deepest truth of all is hidden. It is thanks to them that we as a species exist. Every breath you take, every drop of rain that falls from the sky, every degree of temperature that keeps the Earth habitable, it all depends intrinsically on these 5 blue worlds that cover our planet. The journey begins right now, and we begin in the giant. If all the continents on Earth were torn from their foundations and thrown inside the Pacific Ocean, there would still be a considerably vast space left over. It is so immense that it covers almost half of the planet's entire surface, extending majestically over more than 63.7 million square miles. Its depth is, if possible, even more impressive. In the Mariana Trench, the abyss is so deep that Mount Everest, with its imposing 29,029 feet of height, would fit entirely inside, and there would still be nearly 1.2 miles of ocean left above the peak of the highest mountain in the world. This is the Pacific, the largest, the deepest, and geologically the oldest of all oceans. Its name ironically evokes deep peace, but the reality is that there is very little calm and serenity in these cyclopean waters. Beneath its apparently calm surface, colossal forces are in constant and often violent movement. The ring of fire that surrounds it concentrates 75% of all active volcanoes on the planet. Tectonic plates collide and sink beneath each other in cataclysmic movements that generate earthquakes capable of unleashing devastating tsunamis that cross entire oceans. It is in its essence a living and pulsating giant, an entity that breathes fire and water, shaping the very geography of our world. In the crystalline and pristine waters that bathe remote islands, something moves with a cold, precise, and calculated intelligence. The orca emerges from the depths, its unmistakable and elegant black and white coloring contrasting dramatically with the deep blue that surrounds it. It is the most sophisticated and effective hunter in all the oceans, an aquatic genius that has developed unique and highly specific hunting cultures for each of its populations. Reaching an imposing length of up to 29.5 feet and a weight that can reach 17,600 pounds, the orca manifests as a living torpedo, a perfect fusion of pure muscle and a formidable mind. But its true and breathtaking power does not lie in its size, but in its amazing ability to think, to plan, to collaborate, and to teach. Each family, group, or pod possesses its own refined hunting techniques, which are transmitted from generation to generation, as if they were valuable ancestral traditions. In the frigid waters of the North Pacific, some orcas have learned to create artificial waves to knock seals off floating ice blocks. In Patagonia, others deliberately hurl their bodies onto shallow beaches to capture sea lions, risking getting stranded just to secure their food. In New Zealand, entire groups collaborate to encircle schools of fish, using curtains of air bubbles as if they were invisible and ethereal nets. Watching them hunt is to witness strategy in its purest and most lethal form. They communicate with a complex symphony of specific clicks and whistles, where each family possesses its own unique dialect. They plan their attacks with remarkable anticipation, assign roles to each member of the group, and execute coordinated maneuvers that would take humans years of military training to master. And most impressive of all, they teach. Mothers take their calves on training hunts patiently, showing each technique, gently correcting mistakes, and rewarding successes. Some populations have been seen attacking whale sharks for the sole purpose of extracting their nutrient-rich livers, letting the rest of the body sink into the abyss. But the orca is not completely alone at the top of this realm. There is another giant that fiercely contests the top of the Pacific food chain. There is another predator here, an eminently solitary hunter that has reigned supreme for millions of years, a creature sculpted by evolution to be the perfect killing machine. From the shadowy depths emerges its unmistakable silhouette. The great white shark moves through the water with a fluid and powerful grace that contradicts its colossal size. It can reach up to 19.7 feet in length and weigh up to 4,400 pounds of pure dense muscle. Its jaws house up to 50 serrated teeth, like knives arranged in deadly rows, each a 2.4-inch blade, perfectly designed to tear flesh. However, the great white shark is much more than teeth and brute force. Its senses are so acute they border on the supernatural. It can detect a single drop of blood diluted in 1 million drops of water miles away. Its ampullae of Lorenzini small sensory pores on its head pick up the electrical fields produced by the heartbeat of its prey, allowing it to locate animals hidden under the sand of the seafloor. Its vision is magnificently adapted for dark and murky waters, being able to distinguish minimal contrasts where other predators would only see shadows. And its hearing detects low-frequency vibrations. Miles away, the sound of a struggling wounded fish, of a seal, swimming on the surface of an opportunity presenting itself. When it attacks, it is an explosion of pure power. It ascends from the depths at a speed that defies all logic, with its hydrodynamic body designed to slice through the waters like a biological missile. At the instant of impact, its jaws project forward, separating from the skull to maximize the reach and force of the bite. In a single strike, it can extract 88 pounds of meat. If the prey is too large to be swallowed, it shakes it violently, its serrated teeth functioning like saws that cut through bone and muscle with ease. But even in this violence, there is strategy. When attacking large prey like elephant seals, the white shark applies the bite and wait technique. It delivers a devastating bite and then retreats, observing from a distance as the prey bleeds out and weakens. There is no rush. It waits with a frigid patience. It knows that death is inevitable and does not risk an unnecessary fight that could cause it injuries. And yet even this supreme predator knows fear. When orcas appear in white shark territory, the sharks simply disappear. They abandon the area, sometimes for months. Cases have been recorded of orcas hunting white sharks specifically for their livers, flipping them upside down to induce a state of stupor before killing them with surgical precision. It is a fluid hierarchy where intelligence sometimes surpasses brute force, where group strategy beats individual power. Even further down, where sunlight begins to fail and the waters turn a mysterious dark green, another inhabitant glides stealthily between the rocks and crevices of the seabed. The giant Pacific octopus is the largest species in the world, with tentacles that can reach over 16.4 feet in span from tip to tip. But its impressive size is only one of its many formidable weapons. The octopus is a consummate master of the art of transformation. In its skin, millions of specialized cells called chromatophores can change color in mere fractions of a second. It can turn red, brown, white, and even create complex and dynamic patterns that perfectly mimic the surrounding rocks, algae, and sand. But its ability goes far beyond color. Its skin can change texture, creating bumps that imitate coral or smoothing out to resemble smooth stones. To watch an octopus camouflage itself is to witness an act of pure biological magic. It literally disappears before your eyes, merging with the environment in such a perfect way that even knowing where it is extremely difficult to locate it. It is an almost total invisibility, an ability evolved over millions of years of being both prey and predator at the same time. Its intelligence is so remarkable that it rivals that of some higher mammals. Octopuses have been observed using tools carrying coconut shells as if they were mobile armor, stacking rocks to create defensive fortresses. They can solve complex puzzles, open screw-top jars, memorize patterns, and even recognize individual human faces, reacting differently to each of them. When threatened, the octopus does not rely solely on its incredible camouflage. It can expel a dense cloud of ink that not only obscures the predator's vision, but also contains compounds that confuse its acute sense of smell, creating false leads. While the attacker is disoriented, the octopus propels itself through powerful jets of water, expelled through its siphon, reaching surprising speeds. Its body is almost entirely devoid of bones, with the sole exception of the hard, sharp beak located in the center of its tentacles. This means it can squeeze through any opening larger than that beak, infiltrating crevices that seem impossible to traverse and escaping predators through unthinkable routes. And its tentacles are extraordinary tools. Each possesses hundreds of suckers equipped with chemoreceptors which function like taste buds. The octopus literally tastes everything it touches, identifying prey, recognizing textures, and exploring its environment with a sense for which we have no equivalent. It is as if each tentacle were a mobile and independent tongue tasting the world around it. On moonless nights, when the bioluminescence of microscopic plankton makes the waves glow with a ghostly green, the octopus hunts. It crawls along the rocky bottom, its tentacles exploring every crack, every hole. When it locates a prey, the attack is an explosion of tentacles, a capture that looks like a deadly and precise choreography. Crabs are crushed, shells are pierced by its powerful beak, and fish are poisoned by a toxic saliva that paralyzes them instantly. But the Pacific holds an even deeper secret, in the most literal sense of the word. While on the surface, life boils and teems under the sun, thousands of feet deep in the abyssal zones, where not even the slightest hint of sunlight reaches another completely different world exists. The Mariana Trench, the deepest point of all the oceans, descends a staggering 6.8 miles below the surface. It is deeper than Everest is tall. There, the pressure is so intense that it would crush a human being immediately more than 1,000 atmospheres, compressing every square inch of matter. The temperature stays just a few degrees above freezing. There is no light, no plants, no photosynthesis. Logically, it should be a sterile desert, an inert and dead abyss. And yet, against all odds, there is life there. At the edges of hydrothermal vents that spew boiling water, heated by the Earth's magma, entire communities thrive in the dark. Bacteria that feed not on sunlight, but on chemical compounds vomited by the bowels of the Earth. Giant tube worms that grow up to 6.6 feet, with no mouth or stomach, surviving in perfect symbiosis with bacteria that live inside their bodies. Higher up in the abyssal zone, where the darkness is equally total, but the pressure is slightly lower, strange and alien-looking creatures patrol in search of any organic matter that sinks from the upper layers. It is a constant and nutritious rain of microscopic corpses, of excrement from animals on the surface of particles that slowly descend like a perpetual marine snow. The Pacific is not a single ocean. It is 1,000 oceans contained in one. Each layer, each stratum with its own rules, its own inhabitants, and its own secrets. From the sunny surface to the frozen and pressurized abyss, it is a vertical world of life adapted to the impossible. And while the Pacific currents follow their eternal course, moving in gigantic whirlpools that take decades to complete a single cycle, they transport not only water, they also carry the heat of the tropics toward the pole's nutrients from the depths to the surface and the very seed of life from one continent to another. But our journey must continue because to the west of the Pacific, separated only by the imaginary boundaries we ourselves draw on maps, lies another ocean, a paradise of warm waters where monsoon winds set the pace of life and gentle giants graze serenely in underwater gardens. The Indian Ocean is different from the others. It is the warmest in the world. Its tropical waters reach temperatures around 84.2 degrees Fahrenheit during much of the year. But its most singular and defining characteristic is not the heat, but the fact that its currents completely reverse their direction cyclically. Twice a year, driven by the powerful monsoon winds, the Indian Ocean's surface currents literally change course. From May to September, winds blowing from the southwest push the waters in one direction. From November to March, winds from the northeast push them back. It is an amazing phenomenon, as if the ocean itself breathed inhaling and exhaling with the change of seasons. That predictable seasonal rhythm shaped entire civilizations. For millennia, Arab, Indian, and African navigators synchronized their commercial voyages with the monsoons, taking advantage of these predictable winds to cross thousands of miles of open sea with safety and efficiency. The Indian Ocean was the great liquid highway that connected cultures, ideas, and goods. In the shallow and warm waters that bathe tropical coasts, among the labyrinthine mangrove forests, where roots sink into salt water, lives one of the most gentle and peaceful creatures of all the oceans. The manatee glides slowly through the murky waters, its robust and cylindrical body moving with surprising grace for such a large creature. It can measure up to 13.1 feet long and weigh up to 1,323 pounds, a plump giant that seems to have been designed by nature to transmit a sense of absolute calm. Its thick and wrinkled skin is often covered with algae and small crustaceans that make it their mobile home. He is not bothered by these visitors. He lives in perfect peace with the passengers who accompany him, who clean his parasites while obtaining easy meals. The manatee is completely herbivorous, being the only marine mammal that feeds exclusively on plants. It spends up to 8 hours a day grazing on submerged seagrass meadows, chewing slowly with its prehensile lips that function like soft and delicate hands. It can consume up to 110 pounds of vegetation in a single day. Its movements are slow, deliberate, almost meditative. It comes to the surface every 3 or 4 minutes to breathe its broad snout, emerging gently without the slightest haste. Under the water, it turns lazily over itself and investigates the bottom with a peaceful curiosity. It has no natural predators in its adult stage. It is the very personification of aquatic peace. However, that same tranquility almost led them to extinction. For centuries, they were hunted intensely. Their trusting nature and slow movements made them too easy prey. Today protected by law but still threatened, they swim through estuaries and shallow bays as living reminders that gentleness also deserves and needs protection. Sharing these same warm waters, another creature of remarkable intelligence patrols in highly coordinated groups. The dolphins dance through the waves with a joy that seems totally intentional and contagious. They jump, spin in the air, and play with objects they find floating. But behind this apparent and carefree fun, there are extraordinarily sophisticated minds. Dolphins possess one of the highest ratios of body weight to brain size in the entire animal kingdom. Their brain, comparable in complexity to that of the great primates, reveals an intelligence that continues to amaze scientists. Dolphins exhibit an extraordinary and extremely rare ability in the animal world. They are capable of recognizing themselves in the mirror, a test that reveals not only self-awareness, but also a very high degree of cognition. When an animal understands that the reflection in front of him is not another individual, but a representation of himself, this indicates the presence of sophisticated mental processes, such as memory, advanced perception, and the ability to distinguish between the self and the environment. Among their incredible skills is echolocation. With it, they create three-dimensional sound maps of their surroundings, seeing through sound with impressive precision. They live in complex societies with hierarchies, alliances, and even culture. Distinct groups develop unique hunting techniques that are taught to the calves. Some work in a coordinated way to corner prey. Others use elaborate strategies involving the environment around them. Their communication is astonishing. Each dolphin has a unique whistle, a kind of name that other group members use to call it. Mothers teach their whistles to calves shortly after birth. They can refer to absent individuals through complex sequences of clicks and whistles. Dolphins reveal extraordinary emotional behavior. They provide mutual support, especially when a group member is injured, surrounding it and helping it stay afloat to breathe. Mothers maintain an intense and lasting bond with their calves, accompanying them closely and guiding every stage of their growth. Between them, the effective bond is deep, reflected in attitudes that show genuine empathy and even clear signs of grief when they lose a companion. The Indian Ocean is home to some of the most dazzling and biodiverse coral reefs on the planet. In the Maldives, the Seychelles, and along the East African coast, true underwater cities extend, raised by the incessant work of billions of small architects over millennia. Each coral is in essence a colony of tiny polyps that, by secreting calcium carbonate skeletons, build layer after layer of rigid and complex structures. Over time, these formations end up becoming complete worlds, offering refuge, food, and breeding grounds to an immensity of marine species. They are the rainforests of the sea, explosions of color and biodiversity where every square inch boils with life. Fish of every imaginable color, mollusks of all shapes and sizes, plus other beings that make up this rich and vibrant ecosystem, such as sea turtles that navigate majestically among the coral formations. But reefs are extremely fragile ecosystems. They depend on a delicate symbiotic relationship between the coral polyps and the microscopic algae zooxanthellae that live in their tissues. The algae perform photosynthesis, producing sugars that feed the coral. In return, they receive protection and access to sunlight. It is a perfect association, but extremely vulnerable. When the water gets too warm, the coral under stress expels the algae. Without them, it loses its vibrant color and turns white like a skeleton. This phenomenon, known as bleaching, intensifies as the oceans warm. If temperatures do not quickly return to normal, the coral dies, and with it the entire ecosystem that depended on its structure collapses. The Indian Ocean is also home to fascinating phenomena in its estuaries. There, where rivers meet the ocean fresh and salt water mix, creating unique environments where species from both worlds coexist. It is a labyrinth of channels, islands, and mangroves that make up the true nurseries of the ocean. Estuaries are crucial for marine life. Juvenile fish grow up protected among the roots of mangroves before venturing into the open sea. Migratory birds stop to rest and feed in their rich salt marshes. It is the place where land and sea do not compete, but collaborate to generate abundance. The Indian Ocean is smaller than the Pacific, but no less important. Its warm waters function as a powerful thermal motor that influences global climate patterns. The monsoons it generates bring vital rains that benefit billions of people. Its currents distribute heat and nutrients. Its depths keep secrets not yet revealed. And while its waters follow their seasonal rhythm, flowing first in one direction and then in another, they eventually connect with another giant to the west. Separated only by the imaginary lines we draw on maps, lies the ocean that united civilizations, the sea that was a road between worlds. The Atlantic Ocean is an intrinsic and fundamental part of human history. It was through its waters that civilizations met, that cultures mixed, and that the world as we know it today took its current form. It is the youngest of the oceans from a geological point of view, and in fact, it is still growing. Each year, its continental margins separate a few inches as new volcanic rocks emerge at the mid-Atlantic ridge. That immense underwater mountain range, which runs north to south through the center of the ocean, is one of the largest and most impressive geological structures on the entire planet. It is more than 9,320 miles long, and in some points its peaks reach the height of the Alps. It is there in those abyssal depths where the Earth's crust opens and magma from the mantle ascends, constantly creating new oceanic floor. It is there where the Atlantic breathes and lives, expanding slowly but inexorably. Its waters connect the most extreme climates on the planet. To the north, they touch the perpetual ice of the Arctic. To the south, they embrace the frozen immensity of Antarctica. Between those two extremes flows one of the most important currents for the global climate, the Gulf Stream. Born in the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, this current transports an enormous volume of warm waters toward the north, sliding along the east coast of North America, before crossing the Atlantic toward Europe. It functions like a true river within the ocean, displacing billions of tons of warm water that act as an immense natural heater. Without that benevolent influence, countries like England and Ireland would have a much more severe climate, similar to that of Canada, marked by long, cold and intense winters, with temperatures frequently below zero and vast regions covered in snow for much of the year. It is the Gulf Stream that softens the European climate, keeping northern ports ice-free and guaranteeing winters much less rigorous than they would be naturally. The Atlantic also houses one of the most majestic and charismatic creatures of all oceans. Every year, in one of the largest and most spectacular migrations of the animal kingdom, they arrive. The humpback whale travels thousands of miles through these waters, traveling from the icy polar waters where it feeds to the warm tropical waters where it breeds. With a length of up to 59 feet and a weight of 44 tons, the humpback is a colossus that defies the very force of gravity. Its pectoral fins are the longest of any whale, reaching up to 16.4 feet, each almost a third of its total length. These underwater wings grant it impressive maneuverability for a being of such vast dimensions. When it jumps, it performs a movement that seems physically impossible. The whale propels its massive body completely out of the water, and for a brief and magical instant, 44 tons float in the air, suspended between two worlds. The fall generates an explosion of white foam, a thundering sound that resonates for miles. It is a spectacle of pure power and a joy that seems palpable. But why do they jump? No one knows for sure. Perhaps it is a form of communication with the sound of the splash traveling long distances underwater. Perhaps it is to dislodge parasites attached to their skin. Or perhaps simply it is for pure and exuberant fun. Observing a humpback jump is witnessing something that defies rational explanations. It is as if joy itself had taken a physical and massive form. Male humpbacks are also the great musicians of the ocean. During the breeding season, they sing complex and melancholy songs that can last up to 20 minutes and be heard hundreds of miles away underwater. Each population has its own song, which evolves slowly over the years. All the males in a region sing the same version, and when one introduces a variation that the others like, they imitate and incorporate it. These songs reveal that these giants of the sea carry their own culture and oral tradition that resonates in the depths. It is an ancestral art form that vibrated in the oceans millions of years before any trace of humanity existed. Humpbacks feed in cold, nutrient-rich waters near the poles. Their technique is ingenious. They swim in circles beneath schools of fish, blowing air bubbles that rise and create a cylindrical curtain. The fish, confused and trapped, concentrate in the center. Then the whales rise with their mouths open, swallowing tons of water and fish at once. Their throats expand like giant balloons, and then they expel the water through their baleen, filtering the fish that remain trapped. They can consume up to 2,200 pounds of food per day during the feeding season. They need to accumulate enough fat reserves for the long migration to tropical waters, where they will spend months without eating while they breed and care for their young. The journey can exceed 4,971 miles in each direction. It is one of the greatest migrations of any mammal, and they do it every year, guided by mechanisms we still do not fully understand: Earth's magnetism, the position of the stars, and ancestral memory transmitted from mothers to offspring. Perhaps it is a combination of all of these together. The Atlantic also houses one of the most mystified and legendary phenomena of the oceans, the Bermuda Triangle. It is an imaginary area between Bermuda, Florida, and Puerto Rico, where supposedly ships and planes disappear mysteriously. The reality is less dramatic, but no less interesting. This region is crossed by some of the busiest maritime and air routes in the world. Statistically, the number of disappearances is not significantly higher than in any other area of intense traffic. However, the geography and meteorology of the place present unique challenges: strong and unpredictable currents like the Gulf Stream, tropical storms that form suddenly, and extremely deep waters where remains sink quickly without a trace. There are also large deposits of methane hydrates trapped beneath the ocean floor that occasionally can escape in massive eruptions, creating areas of water with reduced density where ships can literally sink in seconds and winds can quickly change direction and intensity. It is not a supernatural mystery, it is nature following its relentless course. But the legend persists, often more interesting than the scientific truth. On the coasts of the Atlantic, where the waves meet the Earth, there are some of the most productive ecosystems on the planet. The mouth of the Amazon River, for example, pours so much fresh water into the ocean that its influence can be detected 186 miles from the coast. It is possible to sail in fresh water in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, surrounded only by a blue horizon. That mixture of nutrient-rich fresh water with salty seawater creates ideal conditions for explosions of life. Fish migrate to these areas to feed, and seabirds dive without rest. It is a meeting point where the river and the ocean collaborate to create extraordinary abundance. The Atlantic Ocean is also home to the Sargasso Sea, the only sea in the world without coasts, defined not by land, but by a system of ocean currents. It is a region of calm and warm waters in the middle of the North Atlantic's great oceanic gyre. There, floating algae called sargassum form immense golden blankets that extend for thousands of square miles. These floating algae create a unique and vital habitat. Hundreds of species live exclusively there, hidden among their golden fronds. Juvenile fish find a safe refuge. Sea turtles spend the first years of their lives feeding in this floating nursery before returning to the coasts to spawn. It is a floating forest, a complete ecosystem without roots in the earth. European and American eels undertake epic journeys of thousands of miles to the Sargasso Sea to spawn. They are born there, and then their transparent larvae are carried by currents back to the coasts where their parents came from. It can take years to complete the journey. It is a genetically programmed transoceanic navigation, a biological GPS that defies our understanding. The Atlantic is synonymous with movement and connection. It is the ocean that reminds us that no land is truly isolated, that currents flow between all continents, and that water does not recognize the political borders we have drawn. And as its currents follow their eternal circuits, carrying heat from the equator to the poles and cold back again, they finally meet the frozen waters at the top of the world. There, where floating ice covers the ocean, where the sun does not set in summer nor rise in winter, another completely different kingdom exists. The Arctic Ocean is the smallest of all, but it possesses a singular and extreme character. It exists in a permanent and delicate play between ice and freezing water. In winter, its surface transforms into a vast and thick solid crust that extends for millions of square miles. In summer, part of that ice melts, revealing strips of open water, but the Arctic never completely frees itself from its imposing white mantle. It is also the shallowest of the oceans, with an average depth of barely 328 feet. Surrounded almost entirely by land masses, it functions more like a frozen Mediterranean Sea than a traditional ocean. However, its influence on the global climate is disproportionate to its size. Arctic ice functions as a gigantic mirror that reflects sunlight back into space, a phenomenon known as the albedo effect. Without it, the dark ocean would absorb much more heat, drastically accelerating global warming. It is a natural and vital cooling system for the planet, and unfortunately, it is shrinking. Each decade, the extent of Arctic sea ice decreases by about 13%. Scientists predict that in a few decades, the Arctic could be completely ice-free during the summer months. The consequences of this change are difficult to foresee entirely, but they will undoubtedly be profound and global in scope. But as long as the ice persists, life finds ways to thrive in this extreme environment. And at the top of this frozen pyramid, as the undisputed king and sovereign of the Arctic, walks the polar bear. With a length of up to 9.8 feet and a weight that can reach 1,763 pounds, the polar bear is the largest terrestrial predator on the planet. But calling it terrestrial is in a way misleading. It is as much a bear as a marine creature perfectly adapted to life at the limit between ice and water. Its fur, which looks immaculately white, actually is not. Each hair is transparent and hollow, which scatters light in such a way that it appears white to our eyes. Beneath that fur, its skin is completely black, which helps it absorb every precious ray of heat from the Arctic sun. And beneath the skin, a thick layer of fat, up to 4 inches deep, functions as a thermal insulator so efficient that polar bears can overheat if they run for too long. Its enormous paws are adapted for multiple purposes. On ice, the rough pads and hairs on the soles provide excellent traction. In the water, they act as powerful oars, propelling the bear at speeds of up to 6.2 miles per hour. They can swim for days at a time, crossing hundreds of miles of open water between ice floes. But it is in hunting where the polar bear demonstrates its true mastery. Its main food is seals, especially ringed seals, which open breathing holes in the ice. The bear locates these holes thanks to its incredible sense of smell, capable of detecting a seal under 9.8 feet of compacted snow. Then it waits motionless, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, awaiting with a patience of steel the moment when the seal will appear to breathe. When the seal emerges, the attack is instantaneous and devastating. A powerful swipe breaks the ice or drags the seal out of the hole. A bite to the skull or the neck is fatal. It is brutal efficiency, shaped by millions of years of evolution in the most hostile environment on Earth. But the world of the polar bear is changing drastically. The sea ice it needs to hunt melts earlier and earlier in spring and forms later in autumn. That means less time to hunt, fewer seals captured, and therefore fewer fat reserves to survive the long summer when the ice disappears. Some bears have been forced to seek other environments where they struggle to find enough food. They have been seen entering human villages, rummaging through trash, and even confronting people. It is not aggression, it is pure desperation. It is hunger in a world that warmed too fast for them to adapt. Beneath the ice layer where the bear hunts, there is an entire ecosystem that defies conventional logic. How can there be abundant life where direct sunlight does not reach? How can plants grow under feet of solid ice? The answer astonishingly lies in the algae that grow on the underside of the sea ice itself. These microscopic algae have found an ingenious way to perform photosynthesis with the dim and diffuse light that manages to pierce through the ice. During the spring, when the sun returns to the Arctic, their growth skyrockets, tinting the underside of the ice floes with green and brown tones. That explosion of primary productivity sustains everything else. Small crustaceans called amphipods scrape and feed on the algae growing in the ice. These in turn serve as food for smaller fish, like the Arctic cod, which in turn feed larger fish and seals. At the top of this complex cycle, predators like polar bears and orcas depend on these animals to survive. It is a complete and surprisingly robust food chain that begins with the scarce sunlight filtered by the ice and ends with the most powerful presences in the Arctic. The seals that inhabit these frozen waters are true masters of survival in extreme cold. They can dive to depths of hundreds of feet and remain submerged for more than an hour with a single breath of air. Their thick layer of insulating fat not only keeps them warm, but also serves as a vital energy reserve during long periods when food is scarce. In the Arctic winter, when darkness is total and lasts for months on end, life does not stop. It only slows down, entering a different and more leisurely pace. Some animals migrate toward waters further south, while others remain perfectly adapted to the eternal and frigid darkness of the polar winter. The Arctic Ocean is changing faster than any other place on the planet. Temperatures there are increasing at double the rate of the global average. The perennial ice, which remained frozen all summer, is disappearing at an alarming rate. Shipping routes that were previously impossible to transit are opening up. This represents an economic opportunity for humans, but it is a tragedy for species that evolved over eons to depend on the ice. And as the Arctic warms, its cold waters still flow south, mixing with the great ocean currents that eventually reach the other end of the planet. There, at the end of the world, lies the most remote, coldest, and most inhospitable ocean of all. The Antarctic Ocean, also called the Southern Ocean, was the last to be formally discovered. It was only officially recognized as the Fifth Ocean in the year 2000, although sailors and explorers always knew that these waters were fundamentally different. It is defined not by the continents that surround it, but by a unique oceanographic characteristic, the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, the most powerful oceanic river on the planet. That current flows incessantly eastward, completely encircling the continent of Antarctica, without ever being interrupted by any landmass. It moves the incredible amount of 4.59 billion cubic feet of water per second. To put it in perspective, that is equivalent to about 600 times the flow rate of the Amazon River. It is the great current that links all other oceans, acting as a global conveyor belt that distributes heat and nutrients around the globe. Antarctic waters are among the coldest on the planet, recording temperatures below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. They do not freeze completely due to their high salinity. It is such a hostile environment that the fish swimming here have developed special antifreeze proteins in their blood molecules that prevent the formation of ice crystals in their bodies. But despite its coldness, these frozen waters are incredibly productive. During the austral summer, when the sun finally returns after months of darkness, phytoplankton explodes in massive growth. And sustaining much of this vast food chain is a tiny but incredibly abundant creature krill. These small crustaceans look like miniature shrimp and measure just a few inches in length. Individually, they are insignificant. Collectively, they are one of the most impressive biological forces on the planet. The total biomass of Antarctic krill is estimated to reach the staggering figure of 551 million tons. That is more than the combined weight of the entire human population. They form super swarms that can contain millions of individuals, even tinting the water a pink color visible from space. These swarms can extend for miles, forming a living cloud that moves through the ocean. Almost all creatures in these seas feed on krill. Fish, seals, whales, and seabirds are just some of the living beings that depend on this small but fundamental creature to survive. In this frozen and desolate kingdom live the true celebrities of the Antarctic ocean penguins. Incapable of flying in the air, but having become masters of swimming, they transformed their wings into powerful fins and conquered one of the most inhospitable environments on the face of the Earth. The emperor penguin is the largest of all, reaching up to 47 inches in height and a weight of up to 88 pounds. But its size is the least remarkable thing about it. It is the only animal that breeds in the middle of the brutal Antarctic winter, under the most extreme conditions any creature faces voluntarily. After the female lays a single precious egg, she departs immediately for the sea to feed, leaving the male with the sacred responsibility of incubating it. He balances the egg on his feet, covered by a fold of feathered skin called a brood pouch, and then he waits. For 64 endless days, in the very heart of the Antarctic winter, with temperatures plummeting to -58 degrees Fahrenheit and hurricane-force winds whipping at speeds up to 124 miles per hour, the stoic male does not take a single bite. His only mission is to protect the egg. To survive, males cluster in dense, compact formations, thousands of penguins together, sharing their body heat. They constantly rotate positions. Those on the cold outer perimeter eventually reach the warmer center, and those in the center end up exposed to the cold. It is an act of cooperation on an impressive scale, where everyone sacrifices for the survival of the species. When the chick is finally born, the male feeds it with a nutritious secretion produced in his throat. During this entire period, he lives solely on his fat reserves and can lose up to half of his own weight. Therefore, the female needs to return quickly from the sea with food. Otherwise, the chick will not survive. And then, emerging through the blizzard, she arrives. She recognizes her partner by his unique call among thousands of voices. She regurgitates fish for the hungry chick. The male finally released from his long vigil trudges toward the sea to feed for the first time in more than 4 months. The Adelie penguin is smaller and very agile, with the famous white ring around the eyes that gives it an almost funny look, but its determination is far from a joke. Millions of them form huge colonies on the coast of Antarctica, covering rocky slopes with their nests made of small stones. They are exceptional swimmers, capable of reaching speeds up to 9.3 miles per hour underwater. They hunt krill and small fish, diving to depths of 558 feet. When they return to the surface, they can jump more than 3.3 feet out of the water and land directly on the ice. The Gentoo penguin, with its distinctive white stripe over its head, is the fastest swimmer of all penguins. It can reach speeds up to 22 miles per hour, using its fins like wings to literally fly through the water. They are also great divers, descending to more than 656 feet in search of food. Each of these three species found its own strategy to survive in the Antarctic. The emperor faces the brutal winter. The Adelie builds its colonies on land. The Gentoo maximizes the speed and depth of its dives. Together they demonstrate that even in the most hostile environment, life finds not just one, but multiple and wonderful ways to thrive. These Antarctic waters are also home to the largest creatures that inhabit the planet during the summer. Blue whales, the largest animals to have ever existed, migrate here to feast on the abundant krill. In a single day, an adult blue whale can consume up to 4.4 tons of krill, the massive fuel necessary to maintain its colossal body. They are giants that can exceed 98 feet in length, the equivalent of a medium-sized commercial airplane, and reach a weight of more than 198 tons, thus becoming the largest animal to have ever existed in the entire history of the planet. Its heart, gigantic and powerful, is literally the size of a small car, weighing around 992 pounds, and being capable of pumping hundreds of gallons of blood with each heartbeat. Despite its absolutely humongous size, the blue whale is one of the most docile and gentle animals in the ocean and represents no danger to human beings. It is common for these gentle colossi to glide calmly through the water, approaching vessels with an almost silent serenity, moving their enormous fins as if performing a slow and majestic dance in the deep blue. For a long time, precisely because they are calm and unable to react to the speed of human vessels, blue whales were hunted intensely and ruthlessly, almost disappearing from the oceans in the 20th century. Their immense mass yielded large amounts of oil, and that led these peaceful giants to the very brink of extinction. Today, thanks to international agreements and strict protection laws, their populations are slowly beginning to recover, once again sailing the seas with the tranquility that has always defined them. In addition to housing these gigantic creatures, the Antarctic Sea holds another imposing traveler that glides silently through its frozen waters. Unlike animals that move by their own force, this colossus is born from the breaking off of glaciers, as if Antarctica itself released fragments of its frozen body to wander through the ocean. These detached masses form tabular icebergs, true floating mountains that can span hundreds of square miles, raising ice walls that seem to touch the sky. They take years, sometimes decades, to melt completely, traveling slowly northward, while carrying glacial fresh water and nutrients that have been preserved in the ice for thousands of years, transforming each iceberg into a living archive of our planet's climatic history. The Antarctic Ocean is brutal but absolutely essential. Its cold waters absorb large amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, functioning as a crucial carbon sink for the balance of the global climate. Its currents distribute nutrients to other oceans. Its ice reflects sunlight back into space, helping to regulate the planet's temperature. But as in the Arctic, the Antarctic is also changing, and it is doing so very fast. Ice shelves that remained stable for millennia are starting to crack and collapse. Glaciers retreat year after year, and the Antarctic Peninsula is already among the fastest warming regions on the planet. These impacts are just part of a much larger threat. While climate change reshapes the ice, uncontrolled hunting in the past reduced entire populations. Overfishing today empties ecosystems, and pollution from plastics to chemical residues extends even to the most remote and pristine corners of the ocean. The consequences of this set of pressures are still unfolding, but one thing is certain: they will profoundly affect the oceans worldwide. The oceans are the last great unexplored territory of the Earth. They are more mysterious than any forest, vaster than any desert, deeper than any mountain is high. And they are, without a doubt, absolutely essential for our survival. The oceans produce more than half of the oxygen we breathe, thanks to the tireless work of phytoplankton. They regulate the climate, absorbing heat during the day and releasing it at night, creating wind and rain patterns that determine where deserts exist and where lush forests grow. They absorb a quarter of all the carbon dioxide we release into the atmosphere, acting as a crucial buffer that slows the pace of climate change. The oceans are also a vital source of food for billions of people around the world. They provide raw materials for medicines that save lives. They sustain industries that employ millions of people. They are the great trade routes that connect global economies. And they are leisure destinations that inspire, amaze, and renew the human spirit. The 5 oceans are in reality a single and great interconnected system. A current that flows in the Pacific will eventually reach the Atlantic. A whale that feeds in the Antarctic can migrate to the Indian Ocean. The nutrients released in the depths of the Arctic will feed phytoplankton in the tropics. Everything is connected. Everything affects everything else in a complex and delicate web of life. And as we explore, as we learn, as we discover, one truth becomes increasingly clear and inescapable. The oceans are not just resources to be exploited. They are living systems that breathe, that feel, and that need to be respected and protected with urgency. Because when the oceans suffer, we suffer. When the oceans thrive, we thrive. If this journey through the 5 mysterious worlds of the Earth touched something in you, if you felt the immensity, the beauty, and the vital importance of these oceans that cover our planet, leave your like and share this knowledge. Because the more people understand the oceans, the more people will join to protect them. And as long as we have healthy oceans, there will be hope for all of us. Thank you for sailing with us through these 5 blue worlds. Until the next expedition.